You know when you're learning a new language and there's that one specific mistake you just keep making over and over again? Well, there's a science to why that happens. Today, we're going to peek inside the linguist's toolkit and look at how they scientifically compare languages, a process called contrastive analysis, to figure out exactly that. All right, so here's the game plan. First, we're going to nail down what contrastive analysis actually is. Then, we'll see how linguists slice and dice a language into its core levels and what tools they use to measure them. After that, we'll check out a classic model for doing this comparison. And, this is the really cool part, explore its one critical, massive flaw.
So, let's get right into it. What exactly is this thing called contrastive analysis, or CA, as you'll often see it written? Now, it might sound a bit academic, but the idea behind it is actually really straightforward.
Okay, this is the most important thing to get straight right from the start. The goal is psychological. It's all about trying to understand what's happening inside a learner's brain. But the method, that's pure linguistics. It's about taking two languages, laying them out on the table, and just describing and comparing the code. This laser focus on the language itself, separate from all the social and cultural stuff, has a name: microlinguistics.
Now, how on earth do you even begin to compare something as huge and complicated as a whole language? I mean, it's kind of like trying to compare two entire cities. You can't do it all at once. You have to break it down into smaller, more manageable parts.
Let's try a little thought experiment. Imagine you're a linguist, and you've just found the very last person on Earth who speaks a dying language, the very last one. Your mission is to document everything about it before it vanishes completely. So, where would you even start?
Well, you're not just going to write down everything they say in one giant, chaotic notebook, right? No way. You'd get organized. You'd create a section just for the sounds of the language, another section for all the words, and a third for the rules about how to put those words together into sentences. You'd instinctively create different levels of description.
And boom, that is exactly what linguists do. Phonology is just the sound system. Lexis is basically the dictionary. Morphology is all about how words are built, adding prefixes or endings like s to make something plural. And syntax, that's the grammar, the rules for arranging everything. Okay, now this is where it gets really, really cool. Languages can express the exact same idea, but use totally different levels to do it. This is called an interlingual level shift. And believe me, it's a huge source of headaches for language learners.
Let's take the idea of definiteness, like saying the book instead of a book. In English, we use a whole separate word, the. That's a choice at the grammar level. But Arabic, it doesn't use a separate word. It builds definiteness right into the noun itself by sticking a prefix on the front. The meaning is identical, but the work gets shifted from the grammar level in English to the morphology level in Arabic. That's a classic level shift right there.
So, now that we have our levels, our different drawers in the cabinet, let's open them up and look at the 4 precision tools that linguists use to analyze what's actually inside each one. And here's the wild part. According to a super influential linguist named Michael Holliday, you can describe pretty much any language on Earth using just these 4 fundamental concepts. They're like the universal building blocks of grammar.
The first tool, unit, is all about size. It's simply about organizing language into a hierarchy, from the biggest pieces down to the smallest. Linguists call this the rank scale.
So, this scale flows from the largest thing, a sentence, all the way down to a morpheme, which is just the smallest little bit that still has meaning, like the un in unhappy. It's kind of like those Russian nesting dolls. Each bigger unit is built from the smaller units inside it.
Okay, our second tool, structure, is about order. And this one is absolutely crucial. It's not enough to just have the right units, you have to put them in the right sequence. As you can probably guess, this is where a ton of errors happen for learners. Look at this. It seems so simple, but the difference is profound. In English, the structure demands that the adjective comes before the noun, the narrow door. But in Arabic, the structure demands the total opposite. It has to come after, the door, the narrow. A perfect, crystal clear example of a structural contrast. Our third tool is class, and you can think of this one like a bouncer at a club. It's the rule that defines what type of word is allowed to go into a specific slot in the sentence. For example, in the sentence, the boy blank the ball, the class rule is the bouncer that only lets verbs in. Kicked gets in, threw gets in. Blue? Nope, sorry, not on the list. And our last tool is system. This is all about the choices you have. So the bouncer, class, lets you into the verb section of the club.
System is the menu of options you have once you're inside. It's the set of free choices you can make from within that class.
A perfect example is the number system for nouns. In English, our system gives us a two-way choice, singular or plural, book or books. That's it. But in Arabic, the system has three choices. You've got singular, you've got plural, and you've also got the dual, which is a special form you must use for exactly two of something. An Arabic speaker has to make a choice that doesn't even exist on the menu for an English speaker.
So we have the levels and we have the tools. How did the early linguists put all this together to actually build a working model for comparing languages? Well, they developed what we now call the structuralist model.
The main technique of this model is called immediate constituent analysis, and the core idea is that you can take any sentence or phrase and break it down step by repeatedly splitting it into exactly two parts until you can't split it anymore.
For example, take the word ungraceful. The model would split it into un and graceful. Why? Because graceful is a real word that can stand on its own. It would not split it into ungrace and full, because ungrace isn't a meaningful unit by itself. The model just follows this simple logic of what can stand alone, without ever asking what the pieces actually mean.
But this very clean, very logical model has a massive blind spot. It only looks at the surface arrangement of words, and sometimes the surface is incredibly misleading.
The entire model just breaks. It completely falls apart when it runs into ambiguity, when you have two sentences that have the exact same apparent structure but mean completely different things.
Just look at these two sentences. John is easy to please and John is eager to please. On the surface, their structure looks identical. Noun, verb, adjective, to, verb. But their hidden meanings, their deep structures, are total opposites. In the first one, someone else is pleasing John. He's the object. In the second one, John is the one doing the pleasing. He's the subject. The structuralist model, because it can only look at the surface arrangement, is completely blind to this crucial difference. It has no idea.
This failure was a huge deal. It proved that to really compare languages and understand why learners make mistakes, you need a model that can see beneath the surface. And this raises our final and very big question for today. If the visible arrangement of words can't be trusted, how in the world do we ever access a language's hidden, deep structure?